Hi.
So
Shall we get started?
yes, let's do that.
Yes. Let me just welcome our guests from NAATI. Hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure for SIT to work together with NAATI to host today's information session. We have invited our speakers from NAATI, Pascal and also Francisca in the background to talk about the NAATI certification test and also answer questions. So if you have questions, please use the chat box to type in questions and we will get back to them in the Q&A session. Now, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Nice to be with you all today, this afternoon. And so, as Ryan said, I'm Pascal and I'll be presenting, talking to you about NAATI certification testing. I'll do my presentation, go through a few slides, and in the meantime, if you have any questions, as Ryan said, put them in the chat. We'll get to them at the end of the presentation. In the meantime, if you can keep yourselves on mute, that'll be great. And yes, and after that, you'll get to talk to us at the end if you have any questions. Okay, so hopefully you can all see my screen I'm sharing, and I'll get going now. So firstly, I'd like to make an acknowledgement of country, and I would like to acknowledge, oh, that doesn't seem to work. Here we go, sorry. I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of the traditional custodians of the lands, the various lands we are all meeting on. I'm personally on Ghana land around the Adelaide country in South Australia, but you're on a different land, so I'm acknowledging all the traditional custodians of these lands and they're speakers of the first languages. In the spirit of reconciliation, NAATI acknowledges the richness that Indigenous signed and all other languages bring to Australia and the role interpreters and translators play in connecting us all. Okay. So what we're going to look at this afternoon. So firstly, a quick introduction to NAATI. What is NAATI? Then we'll look at the application process, how to apply for a certification test. And then we'll go into a bit more detail about the three tests that you may want to sit. That is to say, the Certified Provisional Interpreter Test, the Certified Interpreter Test, and the Certified Translator Test, otherwise known as CT. We do like to use a CPI, CI, or CT for short. And then we'll show you a few resources that are available, and then briefly talk about recertification, and we'll get to the questions at the end, as I mentioned before. So firstly, we've got a bit of a presentation about NAATI, and it's what is NAATI? So NAATI, as you may know, stands for National Accreditation Authority for Translators and Interpreters. And as you can see written here on your screen, it is the national standards and certifying authority for translators and interpreters in Australia. So it's the only organisation that does this in Australia, and it's also now being used in New Zealand for people who wish to work in these professions. So I now have a short video, and I'm just hoping that the sound is going to work. I'll try playing it and let me know if it works. Do you have sound there? If someone can let me know.
Not yet.
No.
No sound?
No.
Okay.
No. I think you need to share the audio as well when you click the share screen button, which is on the
share sound. Okay.
Yeah, somewhere.
What about here?
It's good now. It's good now.
Okay, so that was a nice little presentation explaining what NAATI is and what NAATI does. This is now our certification system, what it looks like. So on the left-hand side in the blue, you can see that's to do with translators, and in the green to do with the interpreting and the different levels available. So you have to know that recognized practicing level down the bottom is only available for languages that are not tested. If a language is tested, then someone will need to sit the test. If it's a language that is not tested by NAATI currently, then the person can apply for a recognized practicing credential. Otherwise, we then have for interpreting on certified provisional interpreter level, then certified interpreter. And beyond that, we are developing a certified specialist interpreter level to do with health or legal. And again, beyond that, there's also the certified conference interpreter level. And to do with translating, we mainly just have the two levels, certified translator and a certified advanced translator, which is still being developed. Okay, so there are three main elements to NAATI certification. First and foremost, you have to complete formal training, which you are all doing now with your institute, SIIT. Then you will need to sit and pass the certification test. And once you pass the certification test, you become certified as a translator or interpreter. And after that, you become certified for a period of 3 years. And after 3 years, you need to recertify and so on. So these are the three main elements of the NAATI certification system. Okay, so here you've got the test fees for the different tests. So you can see for the certified provisional interpreter, the test fee is $583, certified interpreter, $913 as it stands today. Certified translator for each direction, so that means from Load to English would be $550, and then from English to Load another $550 if you wanted to, for example, to do both directions. Recertification after 3 years, you have to pay a fee of $220. Okay, so let's have a look at the application process first, which is where you need to start once you are ready to apply to sit the certification test. So the first step is to prepare all the documents that you will need to apply. So of course you will need to prove your identity. So some identification document is required, either passport or Australian driver's license. Then you will also need a copy of your transcript or a proof of enrollment if you haven't yet completed the training. And once you have completed, then you can forward to NAATI the certificate of completion. And you will also need photo ID, preferably a good, clear one, as the examples show. The one on the left is the best one. Okay. Number two, this is step number 2. You need to firstly have an account with our My NAATI portal. If you haven't got an account already, then you just need to create a new one and register. And you have the address here highlighted in the first dot point. It's my.naati.com.au, and register, as I said, if you haven't got an account already, and then subsequently you just need to sign in, of course, with your password. It is possible to, of course, change or if you've forgotten the password, and to request a new one. So once logged in, you'll need to click on Submit an Application icon. And that's what it looks like on your screen. And once you've clicked on submit an application, there will be different types of applications. So make sure that you choose the right one and the one you want to click on. It says, as you can see here on the screen, certification and recognized practicing. So that's the type of application you want to choose. Next step is to provide NAATI with your transcript or the certificate of completion, or if, as I mentioned before, you haven't completed your course yet, then at least a proof of enrollment into your course. And so later on, once you've already then applied, and later on you finish, you complete your course, then you can send the completed qualification via email to that address that you can now see on your screen, info@naati.com.au. So how do you apply? That's the next step. Still self-select a test date, so your next step. Once you've actually submitted your application, someone at NAATI will look over your application, make sure everything's included, everything is right. And once someone has checked your application and it's been accepted, if you like, you will receive an email from NAATI letting you know. If everything is in order and you have completed your course, then you will be made eligible for testing. So you will receive an email from NAATI letting you know that you are now eligible for testing. Once you are eligible for testing, that means that you can choose a date for your test. So you just need to log in again into the NAATI account, and you self-select a test date. So you'll just need to go to the icon that says manage my tests, and you will see a list of test dates. You can see the location, the date. So some tests are face-to-face and some tests are online. You will see that under the location. And so you select a test date, and after that, you'll be able to see the payment options. So these days, mainly people are able to pay directly from the NAATI portal, pay online that way. And you will also receive an invoice via email. Okay, so that was how to submit an application, which is fairly straightforward as long as you've created a NAATI account. So let's look now at individual tests. The first one we'll have a look at is the Certified Provisional Interpreter test. So this test has 3 separate tasks. These are dialogue interpreting tasks. They will be from different domains, and you will have 2 consecutive interpreting tasks that are so-called face-to-face, where you are either in the same room as the role players, the English speaker and the LOT speaker, or at least you will be, if you're doing it online, you will be seeing them. And then the third task is the so-called remote task, which is traditionally done over the phone. If you're doing a test in person, if you're doing it online, then that means you only hear the role players, you don't see them, of course. So it's the same as talking to someone over the phone or doing the interpreting job over the phone. So 3 tasks altogether. And each of these tasks will last 10 to 12 minutes. So before you complete, you get to sit the tasks themselves, you get to do some preparation. So it's called preparation time. You are given an interpreting brief, which is related to the dialogue you're about to interpret. You have 15 minutes of preparation time before each task, and you can access the internet via a connected device. So you will be allowed one internet connected device to use during preparation time. You can also access hard copy resources you might have brought along with you. And you can write notes, handwrite notes on only when it's an online test. If it's a face-to-face, of course, you'll have a paper and pen there as well. And so you can take notes during preparation time, but only handwritten notes can be taken. And you cannot use the electronic device once you finish preparation time, and you cannot use the electronic device during task time. Okay. So that's a little bit more detail about the actual interpreting task. These are to do with the so-called face-to-face tasks, like we know with, as you can see in the title here, we put F2F, which stands for face-to-face dialogue task. So you will be you'll have an English and a LOAT role player who will perform each of the two face-to-face tasks. And these will be video recorded for assessment purposes, of course, so that the examiners can watch and assess your performance during that task. During these tasks, you are required to use the consecutive mode. Okay, we're still talking, remember, about the CPI level, Certified Provisional Interpreter. So it's a consecutive mode that's being used. And it's for a dialogue between the two role players, so the LOAT and English role player, about a particular topic or situation you would have been told about during preparation time. Both dialogues are live tests, so the role players are there live and doing the dialogue live. So you need to demonstrate that you know how to manage the interaction between the two role players, just as you would in real life. The interpreting brief will still be with you. You can still access that during the task. If you want to refer to it, you may use handwritten notes during the task, but also you can have the notes that you took during preparation time as well. All right, so that's for the face-to-face tasks, the two that you will have to sit. And the third task, as we said before, is the telephone dialogue task. So very similar format, except of course, this task is not video recorded, it's only audio recorded. You still use the consecutive mode with two live role players, an English role player and a LOAT role player. And you will need to, again, demonstrate that you understand how to manage the interaction between the two role players. Again, you have access to the interpreting brief, your handwritten notes from preparation time, and you can take handwritten notes during the task. When it comes to the assessment of this test, there will be two NAATI examiners who will assess each task of your test separately and independently of each other. These tasks are assessed using the assessment rubrics. So there is a link here, and these slides, a PDF file will be sent to you so that you can access the links, and you can click on all these different links which send you to a particular page on our website so that you can read up about here, in particular, the assessment rubrics. It's very important that you understand how the examiners will be assessing you. So it's according to these rubrics, and there are 5 bands going from 1 to 5, 1 being the top band and 5 being the bottom one. So the examiners will assess and transfer and language competency skills. You need to, as the candidate, you need to pass all 3 tasks in order to pass the test. And your results are usually received within 8 to 10 weeks once you have sat the test. Let's now look at the Certified Interpreter test. So I am presenting you now about the Certified Interpreter test as it is today. It is good for you, though, to understand that we are in the middle of reviewing our tests, and there will be some changes that will be implemented in the not too distant future. But as it is today, we have 8 different tasks for this test. So the first 2 tasks listed here are pretty much the same as the ones we talked about in the CPI test. So one consecutive interpreting task, which is face-to-face, and the other one, which is remote, so over the phone. So these 2 are very pretty much similar to what we have in the CPI test, except they are longer dialogues, so between 17 to 20 minutes. Then you have the 2 side translation tasks, one in each direction, 2 consecutive interpreting tasks, and for the monologue this time, and the last 2 that are listed is for simultaneous interpreting. So again, a monologue tasks, in one for each direction, of course. When it comes to the dialogue tasks, the first 2 that were listed, again, same as with the CPI test, you get 15 minutes preparation once, and you get given an interpreting brief. You can use the internet to do your research, your preparation. You can use hard copy resources, and you can take handwritten notes. Okay. So here, the information is very much the same, as I said, as the information you had for the CPI test. The main difference here is that the dialogue goes on for a longer period of time. So it's usually 17 to 20 minutes for these dialogues. Same here with the telephone dialogue task, which has the same format, except it's 17 to 20 minutes again, and it's an audio task only. Now, when it comes to the side translation tasks, you will have 2, as I said, one in each direction, so from English into Lote and then from Lote into English. Each of the texts you will be presented will roughly be 200 words long. You will be provided with the task material, and you have 15 minutes to prepare. So you read the task and the text, you prepare it for 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes, then you have to do the side translation, and that's for each of these side translation tasks. Then you have the consecutive interpreting monologues. So you would have received a week prior the interpreting briefs, and so you would have done your preparation and research in the lead up to the test. So you have a whole week to do that, and that's why you don't get any additional preparation time on test day. The monologue for consecutive interpreting is divided into 3 parts, and they are delivered from an audio recording. Each monologue is approximately 300 words long. At the end of each section, you will hear a chime, and the invigilator in the room will pause the monologue at that point for you to interpret. it's important to understand that in a monologue task, you cannot request for any repeats or clarifications or pauses except for the actual normal pauses during the monologues. So you can take handwritten notes, of course, during these monologue tasks. And the first monologue will be the one into Load and the second one into English. And approximately it can last up to 25 minutes, although that's a very generous timing. And you can have up to 5 minutes break between each of these tasks. And the last tasks that we'll mention now are the other monologues, but this time is for simultaneous interpreting. So again, you have two, one for each direction, of course. Again, you don't get any additional preparation time on test day because you would have received your interpreting brief a week prior and done all your preparation in the lead up to the test. Again, it's roughly 300 words monologue for each direction. And as the candidate, you must start interpreting only a few seconds after the speaker starts talking, and you continue to interpret simultaneously for the whole duration of the monologue. We give a 5-minute time to complete each simultaneous monologue task, which is again a generous timing. Candidates cannot request repeats, again, the same as with the previous types of monologues. So no repeats, no clarifications or pauses. You are not allowed to ask for the monologue to be paused. You can take handwritten notes if you wish to. Okay. And everything else is pretty much the same. Again, you can have a break, a pause of up to 5 minutes between each direction, each dialogue, to have a little bit of a break. Okay, and that's all the different tasks for the certified interpreter test as it stands today. Again, this test will be assessed by two separate NAATI examiners. They will mark this test independently of each other, using again the assessment rubrics. And again, there's a link here that you will be able to use if you haven't already found it on our website already. And again, it uses the 5 bands to assess performances. So examiners will assess transfer and language competency skills. You will need to pass all 8 tasks in order to pass the test overall, and you would receive your results within 8 to 10 weeks' time. And let's now have a look at the last type of test that we will talk about today, which is the certified translator test. So quite a different type of test, of course, different skill. We're talking about translating skills. Now, a bit of general information firstly listed here. The duration of this test is 3.5 hours. Plus, you get an extra 15 minutes to set up your device because, of course, this is a test done online. The practice test, candidates with test sessions booked in, so that means that from your NAATI account, you would have booked your the actual date and time you will be doing the test. So once you've done that, then you will be able to, you'll be provided closer to the date of the test with access to the online platform and a mock test to make sure that the technology is working well and to check that your equipment is adequate. And that all happens prior to the test, of course. So direction it's only one language direction for each test. So that means it would either be from English into your load or from your load into English. If you wish to do both directions, there will be 2 separate days of testing. Your test consists of 2 different sections. The first section is the translation passage. You are offered 3 passages, but you should only complete 2 of them, and they are approximately 250 words long. And the second section is to do with translation revision. That's the second type of task that you will need to do. So you'll need to revise an existing translation against a source text. We'll go into that in just a moment, a bit more in detail. You should also check out the language policy prior to doing your test. And again, there is a link here that takes you to the particular page on our website to read up about the language policy, particularly to do with your language, your load. So now talking about test environment, the test environment. It's important to understand because you will be doing this test online. So that means that NAATI has to ensure that the test environment is suitable. So you must have an acceptable photo identity document, such as a passport or driver's license, to check in for your test. So you need to prove your identity so that NAATI is certain that you are the right person sitting the test. You will be required to show to your webcam. So you have your passport and you show it up to the webcam like this before starting the test. And you also need to show all paper-based resources that you intend to use. So if you have any paper-based resources on your desk, you will need to show each of them up to the webcam so that we can check what you are using. Any standalone electronic dictionaries that you intend to use, that also is something you will need to show up to the webcam. All resources accessed through your test device, such as laptop, will be visible to NAATI through the proctoring software. So there's a particular software that NAATI will ask you to set up on your device for test day. And because this is an online test, it is up to you, it's your responsibility to have a suitable and quiet environment during the test. You need to ensure, of course, that you're not going to be distracted by anyone or anything in the room, in the house, or anything like that. It needs to be suitable for you to concentrate. And of course, there should not be anyone else in the room with you. You're not allowed to talk to anyone during your test. Let's have a look at a bit more in detail at what type of equipment you will need for that test. So you must have either a laptop or a tablet, whatever you feel most comfortable with. It needs to have a functioning camera and microphone to complete your translation test. On test day, you should have already downloaded and installed a couple of programs. Firstly, Google Chrome, which is the browser that NAATI recommends and prefers for the test to be done from, as well as the Proctor exam software. So those two should be already ready to go on your device. You should have any software or input tools that you may need for your load that should have already been installed. And you also need the ability to use these offline. You should test your computer's configuration, of course, prior to test day as well. So make sure that everything is ready on test day. You don't want to have to mess around on test day because you would be losing time, wasting time, and probably getting stressed about it. Whereas if it's all done and ready to go before test day, that's what you want. You can take notes during the test and use a pen and paper only. Here are a few resources that you can, but also resources that you can't use during the translator test, certified translator test. So things that you can use, the first 3 listed here are the ones that you can use, you may bring and use. So hard copies of commercially available dictionaries, glossaries, etc. Electronic copies of commercially available self-developed dictionaries, glossaries that are accessible offline. Again, it's important that you understand that these resources should be only used as offline versions. And if you have an electronic dictionary, a standalone one, you can use that as well. You should not be using any translation software, whether it's online or offline. These are definitely not things that you can use. Access electronic resources through a second device. So no second device, only one device can be used during the test, is the main one. It should not have a second screen or a second device. Or, you know, if you're doing your test, for example, from a laptop and you have a tablet, you cannot use that tablet. Okay, so just the laptop, for example. And you should not bring and use resources that are things like textbooks or text and translation books. All right. When it comes to the supervision of that translator test, NAATI, you will be recorded, basically. Your screen, everything that you look up, that you do on your screen will be recorded, and the audio the audio around you will be recorded as well. And there's the online proctoring program that is supervising it all. These recordings are monitored in real time, okay, but also sometimes after the test. And that's, of course, to make sure that all our candidates are following the terms and conditions. You will be required to show on your webcam before starting the test all paper-based resources. We've mentioned that already. And all resources accessed through your test device will be visible in real time to NAATI proctoring software. Okay. Let's have a bit more of a look here now at the translation passages, what you will be required to do. So each text, as we said before, is approximately 250 English words in length. You will have a few things provided to you. So of course, the passage itself, it will have a translation brief before that. It will give you what the domain of the passage and the text type. You will have information about the source text, including about the author of the passage, and the target information about the target audience and purpose of the translation, of course. The candidates must provide a translation of the entire text, so the entire passage, for the 2 chosen texts. Remember, you have a choice of 3, but you must complete 2 past translations. Okay, and that includes the title and the full content of the text. Let's now have a look at the translation revision, which is the second type of task you will have to do for this test. So it consists in a translation brief, the source text, and the translation. You will need to identify and correct the errors. So you need to suggest a correction in the comment box. You also need to say which category of error it was. So you will have a type of, you will have a list of error categories, and you will need to choose from that list for each of the corrections that you make. So the error types here are a few examples, may include transfer of meaning errors, such as distortions, unjustified omissions, and insertions. Could also be language errors, such as inappropriate register or idiomatic expressions, errors of grammar, etc. Okay, so that was to do with the translation revision task. Now, after the test, again, your test, of course, needs to be assessed. And again, here we have two separate NAATI examiners who assess your performance independently of each other. And again, they use the assessment rubrics that has 5 bands. So as mentioned before, band 1 represents the highest level, and band 5 that represents the lowest level of performance. In order to pass the entire test, you need to pass all 3 tasks. And the results are, again, we aim to get you the results in 8 to 10 weeks. All right. It's important as well to remember that if at any point you've applied to sit a test, or you've already sat the test and your details change, you've changed your address or your email address, it's very important to keep your contact details updated in the NAATI account. Okay, so we've looked at all the different types of tests, and now we'll just show you a few resources that you can access that are pretty handy. Now, the first one listed here is the CPI preparation workbook. It's a very comprehensive little workbook that you can work through, and it will help you to prepare for the test. Make sure that you've looked at everything and understand how to assess yourself before you sit the test. The second one listed here is a preparation module that NAATI has created in its NAATI Learn website, which is a different website, not the NAATI website portal. It's a different one called NAATI Learn. And so you have a preparation module, which includes a practice material. So a lot of people find that very useful. So you have the link here if you wanted to access that. Then you have the Certified Translator preparation module as well in that same NAATI Learn website that you can access. A few more useful links. We have a LinkedIn account, and we post a lot of updates about the industry, what's happening in the industry, any professional development or anything like that. There's a YouTube channel with some very interesting videos. Some of them are to do with the dialogue tasks. There are examples of the dialogue tasks, so you can watch them there. NAATI also issues a newsletter, monthly newsletter, and you can subscribe to it, again, to keep abreast of what's happening within NAATI, but also in the industry. And we list upcoming professional development events on our website. There's a specific page there on the NAATI website. And the next one is also very important currently. It's about our continuous improvement program, which is to do with the fact that NAATI has had a look at all its different certification tests and the certification system overall since we started it back in 2018. And it has been reviewed, and there has been some recommendations, so you can read about it all from that link. And it's important because you also understand what improvements are being considered. And the last one listed here is the SIIT website, which is, of course, a very useful organization that you should have a look at and consider becoming a member of, at least once you become certified. And we'll have a brief chat now about recertification, which is what you need to do once you have become certified, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. So as you can see, here's a bit of a circle that you will be involved in. So at the top, number 1, you receive your NAATI certification. Then over the course of the next 3 years, you will need to fill out some logbooks to show that you have done professional development activities, but also work practice, that you have been practicing your skill. Then after that, you will be eligible towards the end of the 3-year cycle for recertification. You need to have logged in all your activity and submit it. And after that, you need to submit a recertification application. Once NAATI has checked all the details and is satisfied you have done enough activity, both to do with professional development and to do with work practice, then you become recertified for another 3-year period. So let's have a look what it means a bit more in practice. So work practice criteria obviously is different for translators and interpreters. You can see on your screen for translators how many, an average of how many words are required, and for interpreters, the average of assignments or hours at least per year required. It's all listed here. If you happen to hold more than one NAATI credential, then you are expected to provide evidence of work practice for each of the credential separately. And when it comes to professional development, we have 3 different categories. Okay, and for each categories, you need to have done some professional development related to that category. There is a catalogue that exists that will help you decide in which category a specific activity belongs to. And that's how you fill out your logbooks online in the NAATI portal. If you ever have any questions, you can always send an email to info@naati.com.au explaining exactly what it is you're inquiring about. Otherwise, of course, you have the NAATI website, which has all the information you could possibly ever want to do with each of the tests, the assessment, the fees, or anything like that. All email inquiries will receive a response within 2 business days. That's what we aim for. Okay, so now the presentation is over. And I can see there are quite a few chats there. So we'll see if there are any questions now that we can answer. And I can see that my colleague Claudia Schneider has joined us. She's from our Melbourne office and will be able to assist me with any queries you may have, particularly to do with translator tests. Okay,
Hi,
so Ryan.
everyone.
Hello, thank you. Thanks. Thanks for the informative session. I've got some questions from students here. Let me start with some general one. A student asked how many attempts he or she is allowed to take if he failed the test.
There is no limit to how many times someone can sit the test. In theory, you can. The only thing you need to bear in mind is, of course, you have to pay another test fee every time, and you have to find a test session that's suitable. But other than that, in theory, there's no limit.
There's no limit. Thank you. Another question is about the examination content, because we have candidates from different states and territories. Will the contents used for certain session be the same across Australia, or there'll be some difference?
The information content, what did...
Sorry, the content of the actual examination itself.
Oh, it's the same in all nationally. So we have the same test nationally. There's no difference between states. So the content
Awesome.
would be the same because these tests happen on the same day in all our different states.
Yes. A student asked whether there will be any mock tests available. I think NAATI website has some links to different language streams to access the mock tests, if my memory doesn't fail me.
For the test dates?
No, the mock test, the simulation.
Oh, sorry, the mock test.
Yes.
So we have some mock tests in the NAATI Learn. And new ones are being added for new languages, but I mean, it depends which test was that for interpreting or translate?
I think both interpreting and translation.
Okay, so Claudia, I'm not sure whether, but I think we've only got just the one for each.
So at the moment, it is just what is on the website. So if you have a look under that link.
Yeah, at this stage, that's all there is.
Yes, I think, yeah, I had this kind of information from the website before. There are some practice materials available. Thank you. Now I have some specific questions for each certification test. Now, this one is about the certified provisional interpreters. They would like to know, is there a 2-year limit upon a student would like to know whether he or she needs to register for the certified provisional interpreter test after he or she completes the course within 2 years.
Okay, so so you can apply. You can start the application process before you've even completed your course. That's one thing. Once you have completed the course, you should apply for the NAATI and sit the NAATI certification test within 3 years of completing the course. Yeah, I think that's...
Yes, so 3 years is the limit, the time limit.
So if you go beyond 3 years, NAATI would request that some added course such as ethical competency and intercultural competency be sat again.
Thank you. A student would also like to know whether they can have the skill assessment for certified provisional interpreter.
Yes, it's supposed. So in order to...
So I think it's for immigration. Yes, for immigration purpose.
Yes, and these days, yes, certified provisional interpreter is accepted. It didn't used to be a couple of years ago, but it has now changed, and the CPI level is now accepted.
So does it mean that as long as a student holds a CPI credential, he or she can get the skill assessment?
They can migrate using as an interpreter using their CPI level.
Thank you. Now the question is about the certified interpreter. They would like to know whether there are any vacancies for this year, December tests, because I can see that the NAATI website is undergoing some updates, I believe. We don't really get any information about the vacancy for the language stream of Mandarin for CPI
yeah, look,
CI.
I don't actually know without looking at the website myself. If a certain date is not listed anymore, that would mean that it's full.
Yes. The thing is, usually you get the nearest availability shown on the website, but
Yes.
for the CPI and CI tests, no information is available now.
For which one?
I believe for both Mandarin and Cantonese, the CI and CPI tests.
Okay, so if it's less than 5 weeks away, a test session becomes closed.
Mm-hmm.
So it won't be listed anymore. That means you're not able to apply to sit that session anymore. But anything beyond that, they would be listed. But it should show if they are full or if there are any places available. If I haven't looked myself at those particular ones, so if you can see that there aren't any places available, then unfortunately that's the case. But do bear in mind that people sometimes change their minds, and sometimes someone who has booked their test decides for whatever reason to not sit the test, or they reject the session and the place becomes available for someone else. So it's worth checking often. If you can't find a date soon enough, because you might not be able to find a date, for example, until 2023 or 2024 even, but it's worth so it's worth checking regularly to see if sometimes some places have become available again.
Yes, thank you. A student will also like to know how many minutes they can have for preparation if they take the online site translation task. I think you've set on slides the preparation time for site translation is 5 minutes. Does it apply to both the online and offline tests?
That's right, it's the same. Yeah,
Thank
whether
you.
it's online or in person.
And they also would like to know what sort of glossaries are allowed to be used for the preparation. Should there be any particular formats, PDF, Excel, Word, or anything's fine?
I might take this question. So I think someone was also asking about OneNote as well. So OneNote, you would just have to make sure that it's really functional when you are offline, because I used to use OneNote, and you would have to open each workbook before you sit the test. And you also, any changes you make, of course, can't be saved. So I would perhaps recommend that you transfer your glossaries, if possible, to a sort of more user-friendly program that can be used offline. I think OneNote is probably not the best choice for this purpose. But so your glossaries they can be self-developed. So they can be things that you have developed while you have been completing your course, but they can also be commercially developed glossaries as well. So you would, at the beginning of the test, you would show your invigilator, and they would then allow you to open that up while you're in the test. And of course, they can see your screen as well for the CT test.
Thank you. Thanks.
And I think there was a question about the revision task as well. I might grab that one as well.
Yes,
so,
thank you.
So you've got, with the revision task, you highlight the part of the text that you would like to revise. You type your correction, and you then also choose what error category it's in. And sometimes people, so take your time with the category as well, because sometimes things can fit into more than one category. And in this case, you choose the one that you feel that fits most strongly into.
Thanks. Thank you. I do have some other translation related questions here.
Sure.
I think this one, it sounds a bit tricky. I think the students would like to know can he or she type in traditional Chinese if the original tests are in the simplified Chinese?
Oh, this I would have to investigate. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thanks. Yes, I think it's pretty tricky. I usually expect students to just keep the language, even though simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese are both Chinese, but just keep the same formats. Thanks. The other question is about dictionary. How would I know if my dictionary is qualified to be taken to test? I think this the slides explain quite well, and also the answers from me.
Yes, so you would have to have a function for your dictionary that is an offline function, because as we all know, nowadays there are so many machine translation plugins that become that are defaulted to when we use a dictionary online. So that's something that you just need to be careful about. So basically, I mean, the best way to do that is to kind of to try it out a while before you were sitting the test. And also, I mean, I always recommend that people practice in test conditions as well. So you would already have done that practice without being online. So in general, if it has an online function, it should be fine. If you have questions about specific dictionaries, you can also send an email to our info address, and we can then have a closer look at what it is.
Thank you. Thanks. One more question. I think this one can be also difficult, tricky to a certain extent. The student would like to know, how do you regard a translation work to be good? I mean, we do have the rubrics in hand. What else can we use to assess?
So I would highly recommend that everyone clicks on the links for the rubrics. I think there's so much in the rubrics that will give you an idea of what it is exactly that an examiner is looking for. Because if you, it's very tricky. I'm not an examiner, so I wouldn't be able to really tell you anyway. But I think that looking at the rubric should really give you all of that information that you might need, and just give that a really close read.
Thank you. Thanks. So, dear participants, if you have any question, you can either type in the chat box, or you can actually just unmute yourself and ask questions straight away. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you. Let's see, do we have some more questions?
Hi, can I just jump in?
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
first of all, thank you for all the information you have brought here today, which is super helpful for us to get a better preparation for the test. My name is Abby, and I am just preparing for my SIIT test right now. So I have some questions to ask, if I can. And the first of all, I would like to ask, like, as far as I know, NAATI is still organizing SIIT test in Queensland as face-to-face one. So are there any plans that you are gonna just put this test to an online test?
Did you inquire about the interpreter test? Was that?
Yeah, interpreter SIIT test.
So for most languages, we still try to
Mandarin,
have face-to-face tests, especially for high demand languages such as Mandarin. There will be a choice of either face-to-face or online. So, but of course, sometimes some test sessions get booked up. So
okay.
that's a separate problem, but we still do both.
Okay, so I still need to check when I'm ready to see my test, right?
That's right.
Okay, awesome. And the second one I would like to ask, like, I haven't passed the CPI test, so I hope this one is not too tricky. Do I have to, finish this part when I'm sitting my SIIT test, the dialogue part, I mean?
So you've, sorry, You've
sorry.
you've already set the CPI test. Is that what you?
Yeah,
No.
I have already passed the CPI test.
Oh, you
you
have.
Yeah.
Okay, but you haven't applied yet to the CI.
Yeah.
You haven't yet. Okay, so most probably what will happen, and that's to do with the implementation of our the revision of the certification system, which means that for the CI test in the future, you will be able to just sit the other tasks, that is to say the site translations and the monologue tasks, monologue being consecutive but also simultaneous. So those 3 different types of tasks will be the tasks that you will need to sit in the future for the CI level, because you've already got the CPI. You've already passed the CPI level.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks. We do have some more questions in chat box. A student would like to know whether after passing the translation test, can they pass the skill assessment for migration purpose?
So yeah, I mean, you always need, we're not migration
No.
agents, and we can't really advise you on migration issues, but it depends where you live, whether a translator is on the list of occupations for your state where you are currently living. If it is on the list of occupations, then you can use translator, this city, having passed the city test for migration purposes.
Yes. Just pretty simply, once you pass the test, you always get the skill assessment to be a qualified translator. And it will then depends on the policies in specific state and territory.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's how I understand it. Yes.
Thanks. And a student would like to know the supplementary test. I think we have some quite detailed information on website about supplementary tests. For example, CI, if you fail the first time, and what tasks you need to sit the second time, right?
So it depends what type of tasks you failed. I mean, with the CI level, as it is currently, you are eligible for a supplementary test if you have passed at least 5 tasks. And so you would have a maximum of 3 tasks as a supplementary test in that. So yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. And that will also, I mean, entails how long you need to sit for the supplementary test, I believe. And well, a student would like to know whether for the interpreting tests, both for the CI and CPI, is there any Taiwanese language? Not really to my knowledge. I don't think we have a specific web stream for different Chinese dialects. No.
For interpreting tests, we at this stage it's just the Mandarin and Cantonese are being tested. There's no other languages being tested. So if you have any other languages spoken in Taiwan or China, then that would have to be recognized practicing credential.
Thank you. Thanks. Students, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. This is really the very precious opportunity for us to talk to directly to NAATI. So any question, guys? Thank you. If
there's
not,
anything else, if they have any more questions that they didn't think of at the time, then you can always, as we said before, send an email to NAATI, to info@naati.com.au.
Yes, we always have a bunch of hardworking NAATI team helping us. Thank you.
That's right.
I think someone is on mic now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
Yes. Excuse me. Can I have a very quick question? Just a final one. Yeah.
Yes.
I actually just asked Francisca. Thank you very much for all the information. And my final question is that so if I apply for the tax more than 3 years, that valid time, so I have to attend to the further training, right? So does it mean the entire training course or just a bit more? Yeah.
No, it would specifically, you would, I mean, you have to inquire about it first. So the best thing to do is to send an email and inquire and, you know, explain your situation and how long it's been since you completed the course. But it would be very likely that you would be asked to complete the intercultural competency test and ethical competency test.
Okay.
Not the entire
So
course.
So I just explain my situation by email to NAATI, my circumstances, and they will assess
and they will advise you of what they would want you to do for you to become eligible for testing.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.
I think there was somebody else who wanted to ask a
Jing
question.
Zhao, maybe?
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, like, because we've already practiced like some of the interpreting dialogues, but most of them are like covered the New South Wales organizations or like maybe Victoria, but not Queensland organizations or like related.
Okay, so generally you won't have in the test, in the interpreting test, is that you're talking about the interpreting test, yeah? The dialogue task. In the test, you won't have anything specific about a particular state unless you're sitting, if you are sitting a face-to-face test and there is a section in the dialogue, they would have made sure that it relates to the state you're sitting the test in. But generally speaking, we don't have any terms, any specifically, you know, institutions for a particular state that would be used for other nationally.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, teacher. Hello, Francis.
Hi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Hello.
Sherry? Yes. Oh, you've muted yourself. We could hear you before. Sherry, we could hear you before, but you've now muted yourself. So you need to click on the unmute button, maybe. No.
Let me help her to see whether she can unmute.
Here we go. Yes, hi.
We can hear you now.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes. Okay, she might need to type in the chat, I'm not sure.
Yes, let me just send a private message to her, let her know that
yeah,
she may have
sounds like she's
connection
got
problem.
sound issues, unfortunately.
Yes.
Was there anyone else who had a question in the meantime?
I can see in the chat box a student asked about canceling or actually rescheduling his test.
Okay.
And he applied for a test in 2023, and now there's a vacancy in this year.
Yeah, so you can, as long as it's 5 weeks before the test date he was booked on, you can reject the session at any point without any penalty and reschedule to another test session.
Thank you. And a student like to know what evidence they need to produce to NAATI in order to confirm a test slot. Does a transcript work instead of providing a completion letter?
Yes, we will accept, as long as, just include the transcript in your application, and NAATI will, the person checking applications will have a look at it, and most of the time transcript is sufficient.
Thank you.
As long as the course is complete.
That's right.
Yes, thanks. Well, I guess, guys, if you have any questions, please do unmute yourself or type in chat box. Oh, I do see more questions now.
Should I need that?
Yeah, actually, you've answered a similar question before. Cherry, you need to make sure.
Yes.
No, she has some issue. Let me just type in the answer.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
But otherwise, she can listen to the recording of this information session.
So, guys, any question? If not, I think we can call it a day.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks. I will later share with all of you the link to today's recording as well as the slides. Would I be able to get a copy of the slides that you used today?
Certainly. Yeah. Okay. We'll get that to you. No problem.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. It was nice to speak to everybody. Hopefully we answered a few of the questions that you had. And like we said before, if you have any more questions, you can always send an email to NAATI and you'll get an answer fairly promptly.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.